Here are a few memories of Roscoe. Ross was the only person I ever knew who owned a pocket ashtray. I was a teenager when I first saw it, and my tender age may have contributed to my fascination. It was a simple device, yet the decadence it hinted to was inspiring. It allowed you to smoke anywhere. To be able to smoke a cigarette head to toe without littering a street, burning down a forest, or moving from the bed suggested a freedom I longed for. Ross is also the only person I ever knew who kept a pea jar in his room. This too I learned at an impressionable age. The languor that it alluded to was appealing, as was its in-your-face unconventionality. I wanted my own pea jar. I wanted to pee in bed while smoking a ciggy, and I have Ross to thank for these early ambitions. I also have Ross to thank for almost everything I know about jazz music. The fact that I know little about jazz music is my own fault. My interest centered mostly around the cool lingo the musicians used. But Ross expanded my horizons and turned me onto the music of Mose Allison. Brother Allison has been Jake with me ever since. Like Mose, Ross was a cool cat. He wore thick-rimmed glasses and long scarves and said things like, "Hey, Daddy-o, what's cookin'?" At 9-10, he usually greeted me by saying, "Doodly-wah," and I'd reply, "Doodly-wah." I have no idea what doodly-wah meant. I just figured it was more jazz lingo. But really, its meaning is beside the point. Sharing a signature phrase with Ross was the thing. Another thing Ross taught me about jazz was what a trill is. I'd sit next to him on the piano bench watching his fingers hit trills like nobody's business. He'd hit a trill and I'd say, "Doodly-wah," and nod my head approvingly. One time at Thanksgiving, I told Ross I was heavily into the blues music of harmonica player Little Walter Jacobs. I wasn't sure he'd know Little Walter because nobody at school knew of him, and Ross is a jazz guy. Turned out, Ross knew 10 times more about Little Walter than I did. What a bonding conversation we had that day. And soon after, he and I began sharing a secret handshake. It wasn't necessarily prompted by our Little Walter connection, but once the secret handshake began, it lasted 40 years. There was a time period in Easton marked by a heightened state of conviviality. One night, we were in the living room enjoying refreshments. Dad was wearing his cowbell. Mom had on her crushed velvet hot pants. Ross was at the keys, and I was dancing with Trapper. For a big dog, Trapper moved effortlessly. His front paws hung over my shoulders, and his breath burned my ear canal. All of a sudden, there was a knock at the door, and Dad clanked his way over. He had a hard time placing the couple on the step, and they confirmed that they were, in fact, strangers. The car had broken down, and they asked to use the phone. Dad invited them in, and Ross picked up the beat. Trapper and I started jitterbugging while Mom got more glasses. The couple stayed for well over an hour, spellbound by Ross's playing while awaiting AAA. That's about all I remember of that night, but I have a vague recollection of coming downstairs the next morning to find Ross curled up by the fireplace with Trapper. Later, while drinking his morning joe, Ross made puns of the phrases "hair of the dog" and "screwing the pooch." It's a shame, but a pea jar never did make it into my repertoire, and I doubt I'll ever again find an occasion to say doodly-wah. When listening to Mose or Little Walter, I think of Ross. I also think of his pocket ashtray sometimes. When my siblings and I visited Ross at the VA shortly before he died, he had tubes and monitors and various medical instruments all around him, each designed to help keep him alive. There was sadness in the air, but when I brought up the pocket ashtray, Ross gave a sly smile that lit up the entire room. I went over to his bed, and for the last time ever, we shared our secret handshake.